Let's start. Q Start, 2021, 6. Page 29 Number 1. Aaron had searched every inch of the small cell and saw no possibility of escape. Aaron. The vent down near the floor was about 12 inches across. 1-2. If he managed to pry off the screen, he still couldn't fit in there. Even if he was standing on the bed, he couldn't reach the ceiling to feel for any loose panels. There was a weird metal panel on the wall near the door. It looked like some kind of drawer, but he couldn't get it open. Having seen The Shawshank Redemption about 5 times, Aaron even checked behind the inspirational posters to see if someone had started digging a tunnel. Aaron. But he was out of luck. Page 29 Number 2. What most parents do is stop sharing books as soon as a child can read alone. That makes reading a solitary happening, with no chance to talk about a book or discuss what it is saying. Read aloud together. Read alone yourself, then say, "Have you read this book? I really liked it." Once you begin to be book sharers, you will have no end of delight in sharing. Our son brought us a copy of Brian Jacques Redwall and said, "I think you'll like this. It's a good book." Brian Jacques Redwall. We respect each other's opinions because we have read aloud together and talked about books. That son is in college now and recently visited us. He left a book behind, saying, "I'd like you to read this. It tells you some of my thinking about relationships." Sharing a book makes for a delightful companionship. It is sharing yourself. Page 30 Number 3. Tom dislikes his navigation system, even though he agrees that at times it would be useful. Tom. But he has no way to interact with the system to tailor it to his needs. Even if he can make some high-level choices, fastest, shortest, most scenic, or avoid toll road, he can't discuss with the system why a particular route is chosen. He can't know why the system thinks route A is better than route B. AB. Does it take into account the long traffic signals and the large number of stop signs? And what if 2 routes barely differ, perhaps by just a minute out of an hour's journey? 1. He isn't given alternatives that he might well prefer despite a slight cost in time. The system's methods remain hidden so that even if Tom were tempted to trust it, the silence and secrecy promotes distrust, just as top-down business decisions made without collaboration are distrusted. Tom. Page 30 Number 4. The way of learning the sport of rock climbing has changed considerably in past decades. While 20 years ago the first steps toward climbing were taken almost exclusively on natural rock surfaces, on crags, also called climbing gardens, nowadays the beginner uses mainly an indoor climbing gym, available at all times and in any weather, always safe but still exciting. 20. Eventually, however, almost every one of those indoor climbers feels the urge to combine climbing fun with nature. They want to swap the plastic grips for the varied structures of real rock and not be limited by the ceiling, but rather view the unending sky above them and experience the impressive feeling of looking down from on high. Because there are many climbing gardens and well-established climbing crags about, the first step out of the climbing gym and onto the rocks, apart from the journey to get there, is nowadays easy. Page 31 Number 5. We're sometimes unable to recognize people we've met, let alone recall their name. Most people take this as a sign that they have a bad memory. But this is probably not the case. Names can be a particularly hard thing to remember. For one thing, they are abstract and unconnected to the person. While Mr. Baker used to be a baker, today his name is not related to his profession. Baker. For another, we usually hear names only once when a person is introduced to us, and often we don't even hear the name properly, but smile and shake hands anyway. Something commonplace, like a name, which is only encountered once, is unlikely to be stored as a strong memory. Finally, the worst possible scenario is being introduced to a large group of people at once. Any more than 7 people at the same time and your short-term memory will be overloaded. Then there's almost no chance you'll remember them. Page 31 Number 6. In days of old there was a nobleman travelling in Edinburgh, Scotland, who was approached by a little poor boy begging for money. The man told the child he had no loose change, so the boy offered to go get change. The nobleman, in order to get rid of the young pest, gave the boy a piece of silver, and the boy ran off to get change. On his return, he could not find the man and in fact watched for several days in the place where he had received the money. Some time later, the nobleman happened again to pass that way. The boy approached him again, and put the change he had obtained into his hand, counting it with great exactness. The nobleman was so pleased with the child's honesty that he placed him in school, with the assurance of providing for him. Page 32 Number 7. In 1990, researchers moved to Vietnam to set up a program to fight child malnutrition in poor rural villages. 1990. While conducting surveys to understand the scope of the issue, they grew curious about the handful of children who, despite coming from families as poor as all the others, were perfectly healthy, the positive deviants. What were these families doing differently? If they could discover behaviors that enabled even the most materially deprived parents to raise healthy children, the implications would be tremendous. They found that all the parents of the positive deviants for some reason collected tiny pieces of shell from crabs and shrimp from rice fields and added them to their children's diet, along with the greens from sweet potato tops. None of the other families did. Both these ingredients, though free and available to anyone for the taking, were commonly considered to be inappropriate if not dangerous for children, and so were generally excluded from their diets. The end. Good job.